One. All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking about real music in real time for real people just like you and just like me and just like that other guy in the other box. You may recognize that guy. You may think he's Steve Perry. He's not.
I wish.
But I got to tell you, he's close in a lot of ways. I'm talking to my good buddy, Hugo. How are you, Hugo?
I'm good, Dave. How you doing, brother?
Yeah, it's not just, you go by one name, right? But, I mean, people just know you as Hugo.
Kind of like, whenever I call Madonna, it's like, hey, Madonna. Hey, Sting. Yeah.
It's really Hugo Valenti, right? Hugo Valenti.
It is. Yeah, but I sounded like a designer. Hugo Valenti. So I had to get rid of the Valenti. You know?
Great name for a European band, right?
Right.
A lot of synthesizers and skinny ties. And
right.
Instead of the hair metal. So how are you, buddy?
I'm doing good, bro. Doing good, man. Just getting on like everybody else, man. Crazy.
Yeah, I hear you. 2020, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. 1 star. I give 2020. I got the T-shirt. It's 2020.
1 star.
One. Not recommended. Go on Yelp. You go on Yelp and you rate 2020. Not recommended.
Right.
So you've been at this music thing for a long time. I have a little souvenir that my friend Eric Rainio sent me a while ago.
Eric is the best. He's the greatest.
And because this is kind of hard to find, like a lot of things these days.
Yeah.
You recorded this little puppy with my friend Josh Ramos.
Yeah.
And I insist that the album should have been called Hugo Ramos because it just flows better. But
I suppose. You know, it was Josh's guitar solo album.
Yeah.
And, people said we should get together, and he had no lyrics, which was great because, I'm full of that shit in my head, never ending. So, it was just, he sent it, and it was kind of, he was guitar oriented. So a lot of things needed to be sussed out a little bit, and we, sussed them out and put some lyrics to it. It was great. It was really great. It was good to do,
Yeah. There's a track on there. I think it's called The Dream.
Yeah.
And there's a part in there that there's a verse or a chorus or something that sounds exactly like a moment in a Journey song, and then you go in another direction. It's pretty cool. In the night. I did that purposely. Yeah, and I did it. I just because it was. Listen, there's Street people. Yeah.
If it quacks and walks like a duck, you know what? It's a duck. And we were going for that whole Journey feel. And then, Josh's background and me, I just live, eat, and breathe Steve, so it was like, why not?
Yeah. So you're obviously a fan of Mr. Steve Perry.
He is the one and only, man. Nothing better.
All right, cool. Because your current occupation, right? Unless things have changed, and I know you guys aren't touring or anything, but you're part of this little Journey tribute thing. Tell us about that.
It's something I've been doing for a long time, Dave, and it was a matter of, putting all these albums out in the 80s, and you get signed, you get dropped, you get signed, you get dropped. You realize you don't stink. You're just a victim of this friggin' industry that just chews you up and spits you out, and everybody's got a story.
Right.
So I was always compared to Steve Perry, and even though for the 20 years of recording, 15 years with Columbia, RCA, Warner Brothers, it was always like producers telling me to add more rasp. Add this, get different, do different. There's one Journey and this and that. And I can't tell you how many times we would go to radio with a ballad and Journey was coming out with something. It was like, okay, so, you had to just back off. Yeah. I did my hair blonde. I looked like Brenda Vaccaro, ridiculous. So
awesome.
I can't be changing,
When did you start? What was your first band? What year did you start?
Professionally was with Valentine. Yeah, we somewhere early 80, 82, 83 we got together. We moved to California because that was the thing to do, and everybody needed to be on the Strip. Meanwhile, we were leaving New York and our family and unit and security. So we went there, rent houses, and gonna get day jobs. And man, within a couple of months, I was the first to leave. I said, guys, this is crazy. We're competing with all these bands.
Yeah.
In California with rich old parents in Beverly Hills. And here we are, renting a house and buying mattresses. We couldn't even sleep, So we wound up coming back one at a time. And 6 months later, within 6 months, we got signed to Columbia from John Mervo. So
fantastic. And your
Yeah.
debut was what, 89?
Yeah, I think it was around there.
Yeah,
And again, we got signed to Columbia. That didn't happen, and then went right over to Irving Azoff, Giant Records.
Giant, which was a up and coming label for a brief time, if I remember.
Brief
Yeah.
time. It was Irving's thing. Yeah.
And not much happened. Do you guys get any? Because I was in the business at the time, and I think before we hit record here, I was telling you I don't remember getting a lot of stuff about your group, your band at the time, and it's weird because I remember stuff like that, and I have books and I read, and I'm just like, what happened to this great band Valentine? Because you listen to it, and you're like, maybe you guys just didn't get enough promotions.
That's what it was, man. And if it's one thing you realize when you get signed is you see all these accountings, quarterlies and stuff.
Yeah.
And you realize the world is this big and America is really this big if you think about Japan, Germany, Scandinavia, and so many markets.
Yep.
And that's when we realized that, that while we were doing nothing in America, like so many artists, you have a following in Germany you didn't even know about. Japan was like on fire. Like,
yeah.
Wow. And you're too busy paying back your record budget that you don't even get a dime, It's these nightmare stories that you hear,
Yeah. And then you had to change the name of the band, which was an interesting story. Tell us about that.
Well, yeah. So there it was, man. We were Valentine, and then we went over to from the Irving Azoff thing at Reprise at a Giant. We wound up going to RCA, but at that point they wanted to change. So Valentine was a little too cream puffy and a little too hearts and sweet, and we were just getting into grunge. We didn't know what the hell that meant, like.
No.
Yeah. So it was just crunch time, come up with a name, and we kind of came up with Open Skies, and we let RCA do their thing. And meanwhile, RCA, they the acronym is Record Cemetery of America. They hadn't had a hit since Elvis, so it was like.
Well, wait, RCA. I was really close with MCA, and they were known as the Musical Cemetery of America as well.
Yeah,
so,
there it is.
But RCA was a rough label if you were a rock band that wasn't progressive or new wave sounding. I mean, they had some artists in the 80s. I just think I like Bruce Hornsby in The Range was like big on RCA.
That's it.
But not a lot of others. You kind of go back to like Elvis,
Well, that's what I mean, man. The only good thing is when we were on tour, our tour bus, when we went to Memphis, my road boss is like, we're here, we're RCA. They opened the gates at Graceland. We got a private tour with the, label mates. I'm like, thank you, man. Thank you. Yes, man.
You were walking in Memphis at that point.
That's it, man. That's it. We're in the jungle room. We're chilling. I'm like, all right, I could do this.
Nice. And then, so what happens after Open Skies doesn't open up the sky? What happens after that?
Man, brief tour, what happens? They take the per diem, they take the tour bus, they take it away, and like, all right, you guys can start riding again, but we don't know which way we're going, And again, at that time too, with RCA, Dave, Joe Galante, who was great, he signed us, and he moved to country, and a new guy comes in,
of course,
and with a whole new agenda, and you're like, fuck, of course he is, of course he is. Yeah. So we just changed, and that was it, But at that point, it was already. I think we kind of had a little timeline where we said, you know what, guys, at this point right now, it's been decades,
Yeah.
So we got to figure it out,
Yeah.
It was a sad time because these guys are my friends today. They all play with Steve Orgeri in the Orgeri band, and we're all
really?
Yeah, and it's like, it was so sad, but we speak today, man. We have a great time,
That is so cool. I didn't know that. That is.
Oh yeah,
awesome.
Yeah.
So there's a time period. Time goes along. You record some solo albums, if I remember correct.
Yeah.
How many solo records did you do?
Oh God, I think three, and then Josh, the one with Josh. So I guess 3 or 4.
Right? Yeah, Rayma. And again, for our audience, you'd have to go on like a Japanese website or something. But if you want, this is worth buying. If you like melodic rock in the sort of spirit of Journey with, I would say it's a little more progressive. It's not quite as straightforward as some of the Journey material, but it's sonically, it's really nice. It's really
That's
sweet.
great. Thank you. Man. That's great.
And you've been pretty much, I think when we spoke on the phone at one time, you were telling me that, Dave, look, I'd like to record again. I'd like to do something, but, it's really not worth it because, who's going to play it and who's going to buy it? And now with all the streaming and the downloading and the whole business has changed, are you still kind of there, or are you kind of getting like, maybe I should get out there and put something out there?
I am so there. It's not funny, man. I don't even want to record, man. I'll tell you, Robbie, we're talking about doing some stuff, zooming.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. We did a little something, and we put it on the a Voyage band thing with Patiently, a little snippet of it.
Yeah.
And I sent it to my iPhone because the
Yeah.
idea of getting a microphone and getting Pro Tools and this, and I'm like, you have a better chance of seeing God than thinking I'm doing this, guys. But it's just not happening. I will sing it to an iPhone, or something like that. That's fine. But I wouldn't record anymore. We're having so much fun with the Voyage thing. I mean, we reach people, we turn them on. And if it's the one thing that we have above other, tribute bands is that, I put little Perry thing on, put some tails on, and people are like, shit, man, you took me right back, and it was great. And it's rewarding, it's really, really good to turn people on like that,
Absolutely. Now, have you ever met Mr. Perry before?
I never met Steve, man. I never did. No.
So you don't think, you think he knows who you are? He must know who you are. I mean,
my guitar player, Robbie Hoffman, manages Extreme.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and Perry and Nuno are such good friends. It's both Portuguese. Yeah, they're bros. So when Extreme was recording in LA, he's like, Steve, he's coming down again today. He came down again today, and he just keeps on coming down. And he was just great. But I never made it out there to see it. But they spoke about the band and stuff, and he had some such positive comments and stuff. But listen, it's the greatest tribute, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Voyage, for those who haven't heard Voyage, I mean, the production, the sound, obviously Hugo does the thing where the funny thing you do with Oh Sherry is it cracks me up. The one I've seen on YouTube where you start the song and then you stop it and you're kind of doing this with the audience. And I've been to a couple of Journey tributes, and I have good friends up in Ohio that are in a band called Escape, and I really think they do a good job. They've got a great singer. He's not exactly as photogenic as you are.
Is that Jason? Jason, right?
Jason Kelty. Yeah.
Kelty. He's awesome. He's great.
Yeah, but I mean, he puts on the wig, and he does it, and his voice is right there. So I mean, there's a few bands. There's another band out from Nashville called Resurrection, I think. Mm-hmm. And they're pretty good too. So there's a good amount. A lot of people are doing Journey tributes. Kevin Chalfant is in a Journey tribute. There's some dude from Anthrax who's now
Joey Belladonna. Yeah, that's right.
He's in. There you go. So I mean, it's all over the place. Now this is a good bridge to the next question, because this is a good one. People will want to know about this. So obviously it's 1990 something, and Journey is parting ways with Perry. And of course, we know the story. I've told it a zillion times on this channel.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out all the details. And, I know most of it. There's always going to be a little bit of mystery there, and just as to who said what to who and how it all went down, and the phone calls and this and that. But they were looking for a singer. And I had heard that you were on a fairly short list of candidates at one point, and I was told that Neil Sean was completely freaked out because you were it was like you walked in the room and started to sing. I don't know if you actually auditioned for them, but they heard you and looked at you or whatever, and they got to look at who. And he was so spooked that you looked so much like Perry. Is that the truth?
Oh God, I don't know, honestly. In terms of that, that's for the man to say. I have no idea. You know what? But what happened? At that point, I had finished my first solo album in England, the first Hugo solo album, and it was in your face, some good stuff on it, and I sang my ass off. It was great, and somebody got a hold of it, got it to John Kalodner. Yeah, Kalodner had left Geffen and went to Sony. Okay, and he was in charge of a couple of things. There was this, and there was Journey.
Yeah.
So I was, Dave, cutting lawns with a joint in my mouth, just doing this, saying, okay, because I don't know what the frig I'm going to do next. So I might as well just get some sun, you know?
Oh, you could have been working at the Gap, right? But you weren't.
Oh, yes, that's right. That's right. That's right, my man.
Sorry, I had to throw that out there. I mean, if I ever have if Jerry comes on,
he's great.
He owes me an interview, but if he comes on, I'm gonna ask him about his career at the Gap. We're gonna go into
he's a trip, man. That's why he's got all fit, man. He's hauling carpet, that guy. No wonder. That makes sense, Steve.
Exactly.
That's great. So what happened was I got home one day, and on my private phone, and they didn't even have voice, like a voice, a speaker. That's how old they were.
Yeah.
So I listened back to the recordings, and it was Stacy from John Kolodner's office. We'd like to ask you a question. John would like to speak to you. I called back. Do you have anything? I sent him the album.
Yeah.
And I recorded all this, Dave, on my little thing that I would record music on, because I figured no one's going to friggin' believe me. Yeah. So I put the thing down, and I recorded the whole thing. And it was basically, John heard it. He'd like to speak to you. Give a call. I spoke to him. I recorded the message. Again, this is crazy. Meanwhile, my mom is dying of cancer. God rest her soul. And I just, I come and see her. I'm like, hey, Mom. She goes, how you doing, baby? I'm like, okay. I just got a phone call. And it was like, holy shit. It was like, this could be real,
Hard to process that at that moment,
Yeah, it was hard
right?
to process, especially when I was done. I was thinking, what can I possibly do next with music? I don't know.
Yeah.
That happened. He said, listen, Perry's out of the band. If he wants to come back as a guest singer, he's welcome. But as a band member, he's gone.
Yeah.
And then he said, so get your Journey records out. And I recorded the whole thing. I'll play it for one day. I have it. And it's just one of those small things. And it was so surreal. And naturally the holidays came, they went, and nothing happened. And I find out through mutual friends that they passed on it for whatever reason. In all honesty, as much as I was, I could do the Journey thing, but I spent a whole recording career trying to not sound like Steve and add more rasp, instead of,
Yeah, more rasp.
Yeah, and more
cowbell.
Right. So that was that little thing, and it was like enough to like, holy wow, man, that's pretty cool. But in terms of the Voyage thing, that's why I was always compared to Steve Perry. I said, you know what? Let me start a tribute band, because
let me just go with it. Right at that point. So, long story short, you never heard back from anybody.
No.
Journey camp.
Nope.
Well, that's the legend had it, and I'd heard it from somebody pretty close to the situation that was the reason they passed on you. That you were just too much of a clone, and I think what they were thinking was, well, if we replace Perry, we can't be this blatant or blunt about it. Now, I heard years later, though, that they warmed up to the idea of having a guy that looked and sounded like Perry, but it was at that point it was too late, and things had already happened. But it's weird how that all goes down. Journey is kind of like the center of the universe, and people get a phone call and they think, hey, Steve Jerry obviously got that phone call as well, and he was in your boat, like, hey, I'm done with this. And probably was singing a lot less than you were at the time. I think you were still, like you said, you just recorded an album, and your voice was probably in a little better shape. Speaking of that, how is your voice? I mean, you've been doing this for you got to hit these Perry notes all the time. Is that hard to do? Like when you're out on tour and you're doing a lot of gigs?
You know what? We don't tour that much where it's a lot. So I have more time off than I do playing. And that's good, because it really conserves the voice,
Yeah.
I had read a great article from Steve, and he was saying with the high notes, it's less effort. It's not a lot of effort. When you think of these high notes, they're, it's like effortless.
Yeah.
If they don't come out, you don't hit them. But if they're there, let them happen. But, you don't push that stuff, because you flip into falsetto if you do, and then it sounds cheesy,
Right. Now,
let them kind of happen,
Were you a classically trained singer? Did you vocally train?
I did when I was about, in 7th grade, 8th grade. I took private lessons, and, it's everything that opera is, back straight, Adam's apple down, and it's what classical singers do. If you think opera, it's, this is down and this is out. And that creates room for the chords to do this, you know? So I learned from a really, really great teacher. Taught Billy Joel here on Long Island, and
Yeah.
just a really, really great guy, Chuck Arnold. And I can sing anything with 5 minutes of in falsetto, because when you do falsetto, that's the background of but it's really this, but it's really this, but it's really this. So it's kind of the same voice with support. So it's pretty cool, you know.
Sweet.
That's a whole other video.
You're the first interview that's actually sung. So I was gonna ask you to sing a couple bars of a Journey song just for the hell of it, but
I'm afraid I'll get some cream cheese on the camera and that'll be it. Like, forget about it.
It's all right, man. The boy from Long Island. Long Island.
There it is.
He's from Long Island. All right. So you're content then. You must have another job, right? If you're waiting for gigs for Voyage and there are no gigs because of the floating particle, as I've been calling it lately. So what do you I'm assuming you got something to fall back on, and you don't have to, if that's, you don't want to tell people what that is. I'm just thinking.
I got a few things happening, man. I have some real estate properties.
Okay.
I have a service business here in Long Island, and it's great. And it's something I bought from my dad, who was a, hard old Sicilian guy who's been living almost a century now. He's an amazing guy. And he came here from Sicily with nothing, and he built a big business, and I bought it from him. And, it's a service business, but it does make the donuts, man. It's good. And you need that. You really do.
Makes the donuts. It's spoken like a true. You've got a Dunkin' Donuts on every corner, probably.
Makes it the donuts. We do. We do.
Sicilian. See, you and I have more in common than I actually knew. That's awesome.
Oh, we got to be Florida. I want to go to Florida, but the Corona. You come here, we get shot in New York. We can't even do anything. We have to do this.
You got to come here because it's getting too crazy up there. Come on. I mean,
crazy,
the taxes
man.
here is low taxes here in Florida. I mean, you'll save a ton of money, buy a nice house down here for a couple $100,000.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
But anyway,
I have a plan.
You have a plan. You got to retirement plan. Any rock story? Anybody that you met during your time in the business that you like something that just stuck with you, and it was one of those moments where you were kind of in awe of somebody?
Oh man,
just one. If you got one,
I would have to say Rush, Nassau Coliseum. Going there, and Robbie Hoffman, my guitar player, his brother Steven, who managed Valentine. Yeah. He passed away, Steven. And he worked for Ray Daniels. They did Van Halen. They did Rush. In fact, he got Gary Cherone in Van Halen. Steven did. Crazy how things happen. That's a whole other story, But just going to see Rush Coliseum and having that access backstage and being in the industry a little bit, just seeing Geddy Lee, Neil Peart,
Yeah,
I tell you, when Steven passed away in Canada, we all went up there, and all three members of Rush were there, Neil included, and he was such an introvert. Stay home, don't go out, don't do anything. They were all there just paying respect, and we all had a huge party, and it was amazing. Yeah, but I was in awe. That was Rush,
Yeah, that guy's Neil Peart. I mean, what a loss, huh? With him.
Oh man, oh god.
It just the lyrics. People don't realize. A lot of people just think, oh, he's this insane drummer, but he wrote everything, right? He wrote,
man, unbelievable.
The things he came up with. Time Stands Still, one of the greatest compositions. Maybe
absolutely.
Yeah, maybe not always on everybody's playlist, and it should be, but just go listen to that now and think about what's going on in the world. But this is pretty cool. I mean, I want to thank you for coming on the channel here today. So you're not, I can't plug anything that you have going on. You have gigs? Any gigs like next year scheduled? Anything?
Wear a mask and 6 feet apart, David. 6 feet apart. No, man. Listen, I'm just waiting. Robbie calls me. Hey, we got this offer to go to Seattle for
Oh, be careful.
$1,000. I'm like, okay, no.
Yeah, be careful where you go. I would suggest go to South Dakota. All right, something like that.
Right.
Get a gig there. I know. There've been some bands that have gone there and they get bad press for actually playing a gig, and I laugh and I go, okay, so when is this gonna, I have, it's a separate video. I've kind of been going down
right.
to my own detriment lately because I don't have that much to talk about. If nobody's on tour,
It's crazy. It's
and
crazy.
new music coming out.
Gigs, man.
But hey, if Serafino calls you and begs you and says, Hugo, I need you to sing on this song with so-and-so, would you do it?
He's always reaching to Robbie about doing something. The guys from Frontiers, they're so great. They're such good guys. And I'm just, my love tank is empty, man. I need my journey. That's all I need, like everybody else. For me to start, and I have tons of songs, Dave, but the idea of recording again, it's like Steve Perry says. I mean, he sounds so great because he records for 3 friggin' years,
True.
Well, it makes sense.
Hey, you could do a song every 6 months, Hugo, and you'll have an album in like 5 years.
Well, there you go. Then I'll be that guy with the wig because I'll lose all my hair at that point.
That's awesome. All right. Well, hey, I won't keep you too long in this interview. I don't know how I'm gonna plug this video. It's like you'll have to find out if it's Steve Perry or not. It's probably not because Steve's not returning my phone calls.
Yeah, right.
If you have a way to reach him, let me know. But anyway, best of luck to you, Hugo. You're one of those guys that I look at those 2 records, that Valentine debut and that Open Skies record, and I would tell my audience, go back and listen to those records.
Oh man.
Even if you're not, say some people might watch this and not be a big Journey fan, but if you're a fan of melodic rock and a guy who can sing and hit every note spot on and have the production value that you guys were recording on in 1989, 1993, and Richie Zito, and I think to myself, wow, just, it's weird how the universe works, because if this was, if you had the right label or you had the right DJ that said, no, I am playing this, I don't care what happens. I mean, the station I worked at, Alana Miles owes us a ton of money because they had us playing this other track, and we're like, no, Black Velvet. We're going to play Black Velvet. And we were one of maybe a half dozen stations that just revolted against Atlantic. And Atlantic, they started calling everybody and then telling them, you need to play Black Velvet. It was so funny to watch because then it became one of the biggest songs of the year. And we were like,
sure did.
Yes, because sometimes you just got to do this,
Yeah, that's right. Crazy, man.
All right, brother.
Hey, man.
I know it's going to get cold pretty soon up there in Long Island. And again, open invitation here in sunny Southwest Florida whenever you want to stop by, brother.
Brother, I am coming down. I promise you. Absolutely. We're going to be breaking bread, get some dinner, and chill, man.
All right.
Thank you so much, bro.
All right.